Hey everyone, welcome back. We're about to get started with our next presenter, but before I introduce him, I just wanted to remind folks that there is a Q&A chat box or Q&A function here. We can't take questions or we can't respond to questions live, but we're committed to working to get you the answers after the webinar is concluded. So please feel free to put questions in the box there. And with that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Alejandro Rourke comes to us from the Federal Communications Commission. He is the chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, which develops and implements the Commission's consumer policies, including disability access. CGB serves as the public face of the Commission through outreach and education, is responsible for responding to consumer inquiries and complaints, and maintains collaborative partnerships with state, local, and tribal governments. Prior to joining the FCC, Alejandro led a CEO roundtable of national Latino civil rights organizations working in partnership to promote access, adoption, and the full utilization of technology and telecommunications resources by the Latino community across the United States. Welcome, Alejandro, and over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Sydney. It is a pleasure to be here with you guys. Definitely, you guys are troopers, hanging on for a full day briefing, but really appreciate you with your time and for letting me join the agenda. So like Sydney mentioned, my name is Alejandro Rourke, and I'm the chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. For those of you not super familiar with the work of the Federal Communications Commission, we are an independent federal agency responsible for implementing and enforcing America's communication laws and regulations. The FCC regulates communications by radio, television, phone, satellite, and cable, essentially all of the tools that we use to stay connected. I have the honor of serving as the chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. We serve as the face of the Commission through outreach and education, through our complaint center, like Sydney mentioned, and we maintain collaborative partnership with state, local, and tribal governments in critical areas such as emergency preparedness and the implementation of new technologies. And as of this year, my Bureau also established and is implementing the agency's first federal grant program. So digital equity is an important personal area of focus for me and the chairwoman, but it's not just a focus for me, it really is an agency-wide priority. And part of what that means in practice is that we are working hard to actively ensure that we have maps with accurate and granular level data so that we know where broadband is and broadband isn't. It means that we are working to close the broadband affordability gap through the Affordable Connectivity Program, and that we are establishing rules and model policies to prevent digital discrimination. And I think personal to kind of be in the work that of my Bureau is we are definitely, I think, committed to an inclusive and accessible consumer engagement process that allows us to promote policies that bridge digital disparities and extend our country's telecommunication resources to everyone, everywhere. I think what is clear today more than ever before is that bridging our country's digital opportunity divide is a team lift. It takes focused leadership in Congress, across the federal government, within the public and private sectors, and on the ground in the communities that we all call home. So I'm really happy to be able to join you today to share a quick update on some of the priority issues authorized by Congress as a part of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. So I'd love to start with the Affordable Connectivity Program. So it is essentially our country's largest broadband affordability program, and it is a benefit that helps ensure that households can afford the broadband they need for work, school, healthcare, and more. So this benefit provides a discount of up to $30 a month towards the cost of a new or existing service for eligible households, and up to $75 a month for households on qualifying tribal lands. Eligible households could also receive a one-time discount of up to $100 to purchase a laptop, a desktop computer, or a tablet from participating providers if they contribute more than $10 and less than $50 towards the purchase price. So a household is eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Program if their income is at or below 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. So for example, for a family of about four, that equates to about $55,000 a year. Or if any member of the household meets at least one of this criteria, right? So they could either participate in certain assistance programs such as SNAP, Medicare, federal housing assistance, Social Security, WIC, or the FCC's Lifeline program. If they participate in tribal-specific programs such as the Bureau of Indian Affairs General Assistance, tribal TANF, or food distribution programs on Indian reservations. If someone in the household participates in the National School Lunch Program or the Breakfast Program, including through the USDA Community Eligibility Provision, or if someone in the household has received a federal Pell Grant during the current award year, or if they meet the eligibility criteria for a participating provider's existing low-income internet program. So to date, over 16 million households nationwide have enrolled in the program, but we know that many more are still eligible. So to help do this community level outreach and application enrollment assistance, the FCC released notices of funding opportunity in November of 2022 that essentially will allocate $80 million to governmental and non-governmental organizations to promote awareness and enrollment in the program to eligible households. So specifically, the ACP grant program grants seeks to expand innovative outreach efforts nationwide by strengthening local community partner networks and empowering them with the resources necessary to increase program awareness and enrollment, with a core focus, of course, of reaching historically unserved and underserved populations. So there are 4 complementary grant programs as a part of the ACP Outreach Grant Program Suite, and that is a national competitive outreach program, which will allocate $60 million. We have a tribal competitive outreach program, which is dedicated for organizations or tribal governments to do promotion of and enrollment assistance on federally recognized tribal land. So that is $10 million that are directly going just for outreach on federally recognized tribal lands. And then we have our Your Home, Your Internet pilot program and the ACP Navigator pilot program, each with a funding bucket of about $5 million. So the exciting part of that entire exercise is that announcements were made March 10th, and you can find a full list of all of the grantees at fcc.gov/ACP-grants. And in Oregon specifically, almost nearly $900,000 have been allocated to community organizations to help promote the Affordable Connectivity Program. And I'm also really happy to share that on March 13th, the FCC adopted the 5th report and order, which authorized a more targeted funding opportunity for ACP outreach program. So specifically allocating an additional $10 million in funding for another NOFO for a national competitive outreach program, and I think for the tribal competitive program. So we anticipated that my bureau and the commission will receive many inquiries about this new funding and when the application window will open. But I'll just preview that at this moment, right? We know that there's going to have to be issued a new notice of funding opportunity. And we are currently working through identifying and notifying entities that have been already selected as a part of the round 1 funding, reviewing additional information provided prior to entity-specific notices of awards going out. So we have a little bit of a runway, but wanted to preview that this won't be the only bite at the apple. You know, we really are committed to ensuring that every state receives at least a minimum funding allocation of $500,000. That is a floor, not a ceiling, and ensuring that there is kind of like a robust kind of ecosystem on the ground of partners engaged in promoting the program. So that is, I think, really exciting. And if you guys would like outreach materials, if you guys want to do enrollment activities, please feel free to reach out directly to me. I'm happy to connect you to our outreach team, and they are happy to either do train the trainers, do program information, and also I think provide on-the-ground support for any kind of enrollment events or community education efforts that you might want to lead. I missed this slide, but I just talked about it, so here we go. Next, I'd also really would love to give you guys an update on the broadband data collection effort and the first public pre-production draft of the National Broadband Map and how we got here. So first, for background, the Broadband Data Act directed the FCC to develop new, highly granular maps for fixed broadband service availability on a location-by-location basis nationwide, and standardized maps of mobile broadband service availability. So in order to accomplish that, first, we developed the Broadband Serviceable Location Fabric, which is essentially a data set of all locations or structures across the United States where fixed broadband internet access service can be installed. Next, the FCC opened the inaugural broadband availability filing window for availability data that opened in June 30th and closed out September 1st of last year. And as a result of that process, we collected data from over 2,500 service providers. And then the FCC published the first pre-production draft of the National Broadband Map on November the 18th. So what does that mean kind of for all of us, right? And essentially what that means is that there are two challenge processes that are currently kind of underway or winding down, which allows us as consumers, state, local, and tribal government entities, and other stakeholders to submit proposed corrections to the location and availability data reported on the maps. These challenges, I will flag, will continue on an ongoing basis at intervals throughout the year. So we really encourage everybody, if you haven't had a chance to play with the broadband map, please take a look at it. You know, the number one thing that I say is that for the first time in our country's history, we all have a voice in ensuring that we have accurate broadband maps. You know, and once you really are able to kind of play with the map, you'll see that it's easy to file a challenge, correct an address, say, you know, we feel like this information is wrong. Look at what your providers in your community are saying. That means that if they're saying that they are providing speeds in kind of current threshold and that hasn't been your experience, or they say that it's available service to your house and you have a different experience, right from the map, you are able to, within a couple of clicks, submit a request, provide your feedback, provide a challenge, alert the FCC. And this collection is really important because it advances digital equity across the country by providing, like I said, granular level data about broadband availability throughout the nation. And like I mentioned, will evolve over time as we continue to gather more data. So these granular level maps will help identify unserved and underserved communities most in need of funding for high-speed internet projects, and will be used by the NTIA as they make their funding allocations. So we have released a lot of helpful videos, an outreach toolkit. There's tons of webinars that we will be hosting and that have been hosted and are archived online to help answer any questions that you may have. So I encourage you guys to visit and explore these resources at fcc.gov/broadband data. And like I said before, feel free to email me if you have questions. I'm happy to connect you directly with the Broadband Data Task Force. They are actively taking meetings and providing, you know, really close support. If you have any questions or want to do bulk challenges, which is a different type of a process, we are all accessible and available and want to make sure that you have the support and direct connection to FCC staff to ensure that your perspective, your voice, and your data is reflected accurately on these maps. So I'd also like to take this opportunity to discuss the agency's ongoing efforts to prevent digital discrimination. So as you might know, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act tasked the FCC with establishing model policies to achieve the prevention and elimination of digital discrimination. So again, the question becomes, how are we going to accomplish this very big task, right? So on February the 8th of last year, Chairwoman Rosenworcel announced the Task Force to Prevent Digital Discrimination with leadership that includes Tawana Terry, Sanford Williams, and myself. And our focus will be to create rules and policies to combat digital discrimination and to promote equal access to broadband across the country, regardless of zip code, income level, ethnicity, race, religion, or national origin. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act tasked the FCC with several directives to combat digital discrimination. And again, you can find more information about that at the fcc.gov/task force to prevent digital discrimination. But I will also kind of flag that we are invested as a task force in robust and substantive stakeholder engagement. And so we are really earnestly interested in hearing from local leaders to learn about the unique barriers stalling broadband access or adoption in your community, how we should define digital discrimination, and how we can work collaboratively to achieve this important task. So, for example, we are hosting a series of regional listening sessions. We had one earlier this month in Los Angeles. We have one scheduled coming up in Baltimore at the end of the month, and we will be announcing other sites across the country to ensure that we are in community hearing from the voices on the ground, so that whatever kind of rules or model policies we put forward are responsive to the real challenges that people are facing at the community level. So again, if you are interested in inviting the task force to do a listening session, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are happy to take meetings to hear your perspective one-on-one, or again, to explore ways that we can be in community and talk to and hear the perspective of impacted stakeholders. So I think with that, I threw a lot at you guys. There's tons going on, but like I said, here is my contact info. Please don't feel shy about reaching out. And again, I'm happy to connect you directly to all of the leadership teams that are leading this and much more, other priority projects. So thank you again for having me, and happy to answer any questions as a follow-up to the conversation.
Thank you, Alejandro, for this information. Really appreciate it. To answer a couple questions that have popped up, there is a question about if these slides will be available. I will work with the relevant agencies to see what is appropriate and available for us to post on Senator Wyden's website. Right now, just so you know, if you click on the services button on his website, there are a few guides already on the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act, and we're going to work with all of the presenters to see what we can add to that after the webinar. So just wanted to address that. And with that, we have another short break scheduled, and in about 10 minutes at 11:20, we have a range of speakers from USDA to speak to programs there from a few different agencies. So thank you, Alejandro, and please stand by. We'll be back in about 10 minutes.